Have you ever noticed how some people just completely change what a role means just by being in it? That's kind of what comes to mind when I think about Michelle Obama.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, lawyer, author, activist, style icon. She's like a cultural phenomenon.
It's almost impossible to sum up all the ways she's made an impact. And for today's deep dive, we're going to look at all this material we've gathered on her.
Right. And it's clear that it's about way more than just going through like a standard biography, dates and events and all that.
Yeah, exactly. It's about understanding what made her who she is, how she got where she is, and what kind of lasting influence she's had on, well, everything, really.
And for all of you listening, this deep dive is all about giving you a clear picture of her significance, hitting all the important points, but without getting too bogged down.
Totally. We're not going to bore you with a super long biography or anything. What we're going to do is really unpack those core elements, those things that made her journey from the south side of Chicago to, well, global icon. So remarkable.
It's kind of like a masterclass in resilience, smarts, and never being afraid to challenge the status quo.
I like that. A masterclass. So where do we even begin with all of this? I guess with those foundational elements, the things that kind of set the stage.
Okay, let's start right at the beginning. Michelle LaVaughn Robinson, born in Chicago in 1964. Pretty normal working class upbringing, sharing a small apartment with her brother, Craig.
So not exactly born with this silver spoon or anything.
No, not at all. But what really jumps out is the huge influence her parents had on her, Fraser and Marion. He was a city pump operator, had MS, she was a homemaker, and later worked as a secretary.
Yeah, and they just really pushed education. It was clearly a top priority in their home.
For sure. And despite facing everyday struggles, they had this strong foundation of love and discipline in their home. And you can see how all that shaped Michelle even early on. Like, think about it. She skipped second grade, was in all these advanced placement courses, and ended up graduating as salutatorian. I know, right? Clearly a bright kid from the start. And get this, there's this story about her kindergarten teacher who, get this, actually predicted she'd be a lawyer someday because she was so outspoken.
Uh-huh.
No kidding. It's like one of those little details that just perfectly captures her personality, even way back then. But even with all that talent and drive, she still ran into those times when people doubted her.
That's a really important point, I think, for everyone listening, because it shows you that even someone like Michelle Obama had to deal with people not believing in her. Like, there's this example of her high school counselor who basically told her she shouldn't even bother applying to Princeton.
Like it was a waste of time, basically.
Can you imagine? But she didn't let that stop her.
Nope. She applied anyway, and surprise, surprise, got in.
Take that, high school counselor.
Seriously. I think that right there shows us the power of believing in yourself, even when others don't. Not letting other people's limitations become your own.
Absolutely. And of course, once she got to Princeton, it wasn't exactly a walk in the park either. As one of the few black students on campus, she had to deal with a whole other set of challenges.
Right. Fitting in, feeling like you belong, dealing with prejudice, all of that.
But the sources really emphasize how she made a conscious choice not to shrink herself,
Yeah.
to fit in. She didn't try to be someone she wasn't.
And that's such an important message for everyone, especially if you're in a situation where you feel like an outsider. Don't be afraid to be yourself, to embrace your identity even when it's tough.
100%. And her choice of majors, sociology and African American studies, really shows how deeply she was thinking about these issues, about her own experiences and the bigger picture.
Oh, totally. And her senior thesis, focusing on black students at Ivy League schools. Come on, that's not just an academic exercise. That's her life.
Right. So after Princeton, it was on to Harvard Law School, right?
Yep. And that just reinforces the whole narrative of like this incredibly sharp mind, this commitment to pushing herself intellectually.
But then there's this interesting twist.
Oh, yeah. It turns out that being a lawyer, the traditional kind anyway, wasn't really what she wanted to do. I mean, imagine going through all that schooling and then realizing it's not for you.
It's actually super relatable, I think. A lot of people go through that, feeling like they're on a certain path
Yeah,
and then realizing it's just not the right fit.
for sure. And that brings us to this really interesting shift in her career, moving away from corporate law at this firm, Sidley Austin, and starting to focus on things that were more in line with, well, who she was and what she cared about.
Yeah, it's like that classic story of following your passion.
Totally. And it was actually at Sidley Austin where she met Barack Obama, who was, get this, her intern at the time.
Wow. That's a pretty cool story, I gotta say.
And what's even cooler is that she was apparently pretty hesitant to date a colleague at first.
Uh-huh. I can totally see that, like trying to keep things professional.
Right. But then they went on their first date to see Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing.
What a great first date movie choice.
I know, right? It tells you a lot about them, I think. Like right from the start, they were interested in engaging with social issues, with things that mattered.
Definitely. And obviously that relationship blossomed into marriage. But the sources also mentioned that it wasn't always smooth sailing, especially early on, trying to balance their own ambitions and goals.
You know, that whole power couple thing, it's not always as glamorous as it seems. It's about compromise, making tough decisions, and supporting each other's dreams.
Which honestly is something so many couples can relate to. And it's around this time that she starts making some major moves towards public service, right? Like working at Chicago City Hall, then becoming the executive director of Public Allies.
Right. And Public Allies is all about getting young people involved in public service. So you can see that thread of wanting to make a difference, wanting to have a positive impact on the world.
And for all you listeners, this is a great example of how you can really change your career trajectory. You're not stuck in one lane forever. You can find new ways to use your skills and your passions.
Right. And then there's her work at the University of Chicago. She was all about diversifying the student body, making it more inclusive, more representative. And then there was her community outreach, working with the people in the surrounding neighborhoods.
She's always been so focused on bringing people together, creating opportunities.
Totally. And all of this while being a mom, raising their two daughters, Malia and Sasha.
Wow. I mean, trying to juggle a demanding career, a family, and then her husband's rising political career, that's a lot.
You have to be super organized, I think, and maybe a little bit superhuman. But then, of course, comes the big one. Barack decides to run for president.
Talk about a life-changing event.
Right, and the sources actually mention that she had some reservations at first, which to me just makes her seem even more real, It's not like she blindly jumped into this whole crazy world of politics.
No, she clearly thought about it, weighed the pros and cons. What a huge decision for their family.
Absolutely. But then she was all in. Her support was unwavering.
Yeah.
And of course, her becoming the first Black First Lady, that was just monumental.
Absolutely historic.
And she really made that role her own. The sources talk about how she was so different from previous First Ladies,
Yeah.
More active, more engaged, more honest, more herself.
It's like she wasn't afraid to be vulnerable, to connect with people on a real level, which I think is what made her so relatable.
Yeah, and let's not forget about all those amazing initiatives she spearheaded, like Let's Move.
Oh, yeah, the whole healthy eating exercise thing, the White House vegetable garden.
Exactly. It wasn't just talk, it was action. And for anyone listening who's trying to make a difference, that's a great lesson, Combine your message with concrete actions. Show people what you mean.
And then there's that iconic phrase, when they go low, we go high.
Yeah.
It still gives me chills.
I know, right? It's so powerful, especially coming from her during that crazy 2016 election.
It's like she gave people this permission to be better, to rise above the negativity.
Totally. It's like a guiding principle for life. And then there's all her work on education and empowering girls, with initiatives like Let Girls Learn and Reach Higher.
Yeah, such important causes. And she's so passionate about them.
It all goes back to that idea of creating opportunities, of leveling the playing field, of making sure everyone has a chance to succeed.
And on top of all that, she somehow became this pop culture icon. Remember all those late night show appearances? Carpool karaoke?
Oh, yeah, she was everywhere. And dancing with Ellen, and even dabbing with the Golden State Warriors.
That's like she made being First Lady cool.
It was so refreshing, right? Like she was showing everyone that even someone in her position could still be fun, relatable, just a normal person.
And that connection she built with people, it just exploded after they left the White House. Her memoir, Becoming, became this massive bestseller, like 14 million copies sold.
And her book tour. Packed arenas. It was like a rock concert.
Seriously. So what do you think it was about that book that resonated with so many people?
I think it's the honesty, She was so open about her struggles, her insecurities, her triumphs. It's like she gave people permission to be themselves, flaws and all.
And she hasn't slowed down at all. The Obama Foundation, her podcast, she's still out there fighting for voting rights, racial justice, education.
It's like her time in the White House was just one chapter in a much bigger story.
Totally. And what's so inspiring, I think, is that all of this, all her impact, it's not just because she was First Lady, It's because of who she is, the values she embodies, the work she puts in.
The sources make that very clear. It's like she's saying to everyone, you don't need a fancy title to make a difference. You just need to be authentic, work hard, and fight for what you believe in.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Michelle Obama's incredible journey, here's something for you all to think about. How did all her experiences, from that South Side upbringing to becoming First Lady and everything in between, shape the way she leads and influences? And what can we learn from her about navigating all the different roles we play in life, about staying true to ourselves even when things get tough?
Yeah, those are some good questions. I think we could all benefit from reflecting on that.
I know I will. So thanks for joining us for another deep dive. And until next time, keep those questions in mind and keep learning.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.